Good evening. My name is Barry Singer. I'm the proprietor of the store, in case you're here for the first time. This is First Readings at Chartwell Booksellers, our third First Readings at Chartwell Booksellers. For those of you who may not know, our whole purpose here is to celebrate new fiction by pairing new novels, new short story collections of distinction with guest readers, and sort of to present these books to you, to dramatize them for you in a way, and to show off new talent. The previous two readings that we had here were both of them very, very special events. The first one was with Elizabeth McGovern, reading from a novel called In Country by Bobby Ann Mason. The second reading we had was with Judd Nelson, reading from Scott Spencer's novel Waking the Dead. So tonight we turn to short stories for the first time. Tama Janowitz's first collection of short stories, Slaves of New York. Our reader this evening is Clarke. Caitlin is a theater Broadway actress, and it really tickles me to be able to say that, because there are so few actors and actresses today, it seems to me, who really spend their time on the stage, and particularly on Broadway. Caitlin, in the last year, has been on Broadway 3 times. She appeared with Glenda Jackson in Strange Interlude. She was in Kevin Kline's production of Arms and the Man, and she was in a very unusual restaging that André Serban did of The Marriage of Figaro, all within the last year. She also has been with just about every off-Broadway and regional theater that I can think of any significance, and I'm really thrilled that she's here reading with us tonight. Reading with Caitlin is an actor by the name of Tom Cayler. Tom is a quintessential young, up-and-coming New York actor who just won a Tony Award, a 1986 Obie Award for a play at Theater for the New City that was just closed about, I think, a couple of months ago, called A Matter of Life and Death. Tama Janowitz is, I think, a very distinctive new voice in American literature. Her stories, most of the stories in Slaves of New York appeared first in The New Yorker, some of them in Interview magazine, I think one of them in Harper's Magazine. Those of you who have never read Tama Janowitz are in for a real treat, I think, and those of you who have read her know what I'm talking about. Tama's with us tonight, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to say by way of introduction to Slaves of New York.
I've never been asked to introduce my own work before, and I don't really know what to say. I could say it was a wonderful book, but somehow that wouldn't really sound right. So I could say it's an okay book, and that I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm really thankful to Barry for setting this up, and to Chartwell Books, and I'm very thankful you could all come tonight, and I'm even more thankful that I don't have to read the work myself.
It is August and boring. Stash and I are going to play softball. It starts at 10 o'clock at night. The week before, fed up with making jewelry, tired of the city heat and keeping house, I went home to visit my mother. While I was away, Stash attended the impromptu Friday night ball game up under the 59th Street Bridge. He was on a team called the Aliens. The other team was the Sphinxes. None of the teams were really organized. Whoever showed up could play. Almost everyone on both teams was in the arts. Painters, musicians, writers, filmmakers. Girls were playing too. In fact, some of the players were so bad, Stash felt it would be okay if I joined the next game.
You sure you want to go?
Stash says from his customary place in front of the TV set. I'm getting dressed, braiding my hair so I can stuff it under a baseball cap with a picture of Pac-Man on the front. Yeah, I want to go, I say, but I'll probably be lousy. I haven't played baseball since I was 8 years old. Marie Angela Montecarlo hit me on purpose on the nose with a ball, and I beat her up. Mrs. Rourke, the elderly gym teacher, forced me to apologize and made me sit out the rest of the game. Later on, my book bag accidentally fell out of my locker and hit Marie Angela on the head as she was walking past. I was a fierce, if uncoordinated, child. But in 3rd grade, Mrs. Rourke told me that some of the other children were complaining about me. I was too bossy. Is this what psychiatrists call a peak experience? Since that date, I've never really regained confidence, a fact which strikes me as unfortunate. Stash seems reluctant to get up and dress. He's watching the Jerry Lewis telethon. Sammy Davis Jr. is singing a song about saving the children.
This is great.
Stash says.
Man, I don't even want to go out. This show is wild.
He's a painter, a graffiti artist. While he watches TV, he makes a sketch for one of his paintings. I look over his shoulder. Mighty Mouse is rescuing a bald baby bird from the hands of a giant Japanese robot in a business suit. I don't know what the drawing means, but Stash is very successful at his work. Though we've been only living together for a year, in that time we've traveled twice to Europe for his shows. Earlier, he took me to Haiti, where I was badly sunburned. Stash has a charismatic personality. He's authoritative and permissive, all at the same time. In other words, I can do whatever I want as long as it's something he approves of. Or perhaps it's true what he says. I need his approval because I'm willfully insecure. A wimp with a will to be one. Well, I've made up my mind in one way. If I ever get some kind of job security and or marital security, I'm going to join the feminist movement. Stash is standing in front of the TV. I have to peer around him to see. A child is giving a wheelchair demonstration. The wheelchair is motorized and crashes into Jerry's legs. Turn that off, Stash, I say. We better be going. For some reason, the telethon, or maybe the impending ball game, is making me nervous. There are at least 2 more hours before it's over. We take the E train up to 53rd and 3rd Avenue. Stash molests me on the subway platform. Anyway, he grabs me around the waist and breathes heavily down the back of my neck. He knows this makes me squirm. Take it easy, I say. There are people leering. Stash is wearing a Crazy Eddie t-shirt and white cotton trousers with zippered pockets. They're stained with mustard from when we went to the Yankees game 2 nights ago. Stash resembles a Polish-Italian samurai warrior with his blonde hair and Eastern European complexion. His ponytail hangs in back almost to his waist. He shaves once a week. One reason I was attracted to him in the first place was his dangerous appearance. Before I knew him, I thought he was a member of some motorcycle gang. I'm not alone in this evaluation. I remember once Stash hailed a taxi, which stopped. He ran across the street to get it. Just at that moment, a woman got out of the cab. When she saw Stash with his leather motorcycle jacket, his unshaven face, his Confederate Army soldier's cap, she jumped into the air, a look of terror on her face. It took several seconds for her to realize that Stash wasn't going to mug her. He just wanted her taxi. I subliminally enjoyed that. I like associating with such a frightening-looking person. Underneath, however, Stash is actually quite gentle. He said at times that it was very immature of me to have been attracted to his underworld qualities. This shows I wasn't looking for a real relationship. But I disagree. I've always felt that people's appearances don't necessarily have anything to do with their personality. Before we lived together, when Stash used to come to my apartment, I'd watch his behavior with Snowball, my cat. Even though it bothered Stash that Snowball didn't like to use the cat box, he was very good with her. He brushed her, bought her catnip. The only thing Stash insisted on was that while he was in my apartment, the cat had to stay off the bed. Snowball bit him on the nose once, and he swatted her across the room. I could understand this, but before I moved in with him, I had enough sense to give the cat away to my girlfriend. At our stop, we have to climb flight after flight of stairs to get to the street. The escalator is out of order. I'm not one of those girls who likes to exercise. At the top of the stairs, I'm out of breath. I don't know how I'll be able to play baseball, but I'm determined to try. This is the first time I've lived with a man. I want to be a good sport. Once I bought a book of advice to women about men, and the book told me to read the sports section of the newspaper every day. So far, Stash hasn't proposed, although I can quote you the batting averages of the Yankees for the past season. He takes my arm as we walk up 3rd Avenue. Cars rush by in the night. Furious wasps smoked out of their hive. Though it's dark, the air is hot and dry. In the city at this time of year, the people who are left take on a demonic appearance. Their faces are yellow and ghastly. The street toward York Avenue grows gloomier. A large luxury building cuts off the view, but when we cross the street, I see the cars are heading up the ramp onto the bridge. The bridge, seen from street level, appears tremendous. I notice turrets and ramparts protrude from the side. Below the bridge is an alcove, hidden from the cars, but visible to pedestrians. If things don't work out with Stash, maybe I'll take my stuff and live in that little hole. I'll furnish it with a battery-operated lamp, a worn chair from the street, all the luxuries of home. The idea seems cozy.
There's the field.
Stash says, pointing. We stop at the start of the cyclone fence and look out across the field. The ball field, covered with a fine brown silt, lies in a pile of empty boxes of Kentucky Fried Chicken, beer cans, and torn newspapers. Above the field is the underbelly of the 59th Street Bridge, ridged with steel girders, shored up in places with planks of wood, like the grill of some immense cage. It's studded in spots with brilliant arc lamps. A hot wind churns up the dust. Across the field, grimy, fierce men. I don't recognize any of them. Sock the ball back and forth, faces stony as Aztecs. I feel like some actress who's walked onto the movie set without her script. Obviously, I don't belong. Yet I'm not certain I feel any different when I'm at home, pretending that Stash and I are an old married couple. If I had stayed in tonight by myself, I could have thought some more about the kinds of jewelry I want to design. The best idea I've had so far is to make pins and earrings out of reproductions of food. A plastic company will sell me an assortment of pastries, petit fours, eclairs, strawberry tarts, which I might put onto necklaces and earring wires. Stash has said this idea is not unique enough. He's already seen in some store earrings in the shape of sushi and sashimi, with realistic rice, seafood, and raw fish. He's a harsh critic, but usually he's right. Listen, Buster, I tell him, I can't play.
That's the way I felt last week. Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it.
But he looks skeptical. What if I miss? I say. All the guys are going to yell at me, huh?
Nah, it's not like that.
Some people are sitting on the cement bleachers. I recognize one person, an artist with a long, pocked face and glittery eyes. His name is Marley Mantello. Once he asked me out on a date. This was before I met Stash. I pretend I don't see him. I figured out that Stash doesn't like me to be friendly with other men. And I follow Stash over to some girl.
Hi, Mame.
Stash says.
Have you met Eleanor?
Hi, Mame says. She resembles Tweety Bird. Yellowish fluff sprouts from her head. Her eyes are round and surprised. Hey, look at this, she says. From a tremendous pocketbook, she pulls out an oversized wine glass. Attached to the stem is an assortment of rhinestones, square cubes of emerald, ruby, topaz, arranged around a rubber cupid carrying a bow and arrow. See this, she says. I just got back from Europe. These glasses went over fabulously. I got tons of orders. I feel a twinge of jealousy. I've been too busy trying to adjust to life with a man to devote all my energy to my work. The world of jewelry and home furnishing accessories is very competitive. Maybe I should quit doing jewelry and start to do clothing. Stash has been encouraging, but he emphasizes the fact that I don't work hard enough. Are you going to play baseball? I asked Mame. Oh, yeah, Mame says. Listen, I have to do something with myself tonight. I didn't bring any smack with me to Paris, and it was fine. 3 weeks, and I didn't miss it at all. But as soon as I got back tonight, I went straight to my dealer's. That's New York for you. Mame is very restless. I hope this game goes on all night, she says. Then I'll feel like going home. I suppose I should be glad that Stash and I are drug-free. I only know two kinds of people these days. Those who used to take drugs and stopped, and those who still do. Stash lived through all that and came out the other side. For myself, I was never physically cut out for the fast lane. No drug I ever tried made me feel good, and even one drink makes me severely hungover almost immediately.
I'm going out to warm up.
Stash says. Come on, Stash, you pitch to me, Mame says. I'm waiting to see how good she is and feel relieved when she swings wildly, spinning around in a circle each time the ball is thrown to her. She misses 3 balls in a row. Her short little arms resemble Tweety Bird's wings. Her feet in pink basketball sneakers are oversized, cartoonish. Somewhere on this planet, I figure there is probably a whole tribe of people who look just like her. A neighborhood of Chilly Willy, Sylvester the Cat, Elmer Fudd. At least they probably don't ever have to worry about how to behave. A long, thin dog wanders around the field looking morose. The dog approaches a small boy who is throwing a ball back and forth to the other players. He's about 8, wearing a shirt that says Oakland A's. A pair of too large shorts are hiked up to his armpits. His little arms and legs stick out from a larval body. Mame puts the bat down and comes back to me. Look at him, she says. Isn't he adorable? I look him over again. I guess, I say. I got pregnant, Mame says. I'm madly in love. It's so depressing. Are you going to have a baby, I say? Philippe wants us to have it, Mame says. We're going to get married, but his mother won't let him. This is someone you met in Paris. He lives in Barcelona, Mame says. I met him last year. Then I was with him again this summer. He's addicted to speed, but he's a wonderful musician. I wish I could get enough money to bring him over here and get him straightened out. His mother doesn't want him to, you know. He's strict Catholic, and I'm not. His mother doesn't think too much of my background. Before I can ask her whether she plans to have the baby anyway, a man comes over to us. I must have met him 15 times, but he was one of those people I instantly forget. He has a bland, innocuous face, sandy hair. It's not until Mame leaps up and throws her arms around him saying, Max, my darling, where's that goddamn beer? That I remember I know him. He's the organizer of the game and an artist who paints traumatic situations, a rape, a car accident, in a medium he's invented himself, ground bones and blood acquired from garbage pails outside the meat market.
Are you guys going to play?
He says. What the hell do you think I came here for, Mame says. Her plump white hands are weighted with an assortment of rings. She wears candy-colored plastic baubles up to her elbows.
How about you?
Max says.
We could use you.
I don't know, I say. Let me try and hit a few. If I hit them, I'll play. I go out onto the field. Stash, pitch me a few, I say. I swing the bat at shoulder level. To my surprise, a voice comes into my head. Watch the ball, the voice says. Keep your eye on the ball. Don't swing until it's over the plate. It's the voice of Mrs. Rourke, my gym teacher. Just as spirited as when I was in first grade. Apparently, I'm going to have to live with her my entire life. I don't know whether I'm exactly thrilled with this. I swing at the ball and hit it. Even though my hit is low, the ball goes all the way past second base. Stash looks pleased.
You can play,
he says. Everybody comes in from warming up. I'm assigned to the team which lost last week. They need a catcher, which is fine with me. I remember now how I could never catch a ball out in the field, but if I'm behind the batter's plate, it seems to me, I can easily retrieve the ball and throw it to the pitcher. My batting position is last. The little kid hangs around looking hopeful, but no one wants him on their team. My team is up first. We sit around on the bleachers waiting to bat. Mickey, Mame says to the little kid, come over here and sit on my lap. Mickey ignores her. Whose kid is he? I say. You know Eddie, don't you? Mame says, pointing to third base. Yeah, I say. Eddie's just made a movie. He's written, directed, and acted in something called Forget It. It was about some people who live on the Lower East Side and sell drugs that they had invented. The drugs turn the users into members of the opposite sex. This movie got very good reviews. Now Eddie is something of a celebrity. Soon Eddie is supposed to leave for California. He's making a big movie out there. But he still hangs around the club scene and plays ball. I knew he had a kid who lived half the time with him and half the time with his ex-wife, but I never actually saw Mickey before. Since Eddie's divorce, his ex-wife lives with her girlfriend, and Eddie lives with his boyfriend. More than ever, I realized, everyone I know is just playing at being a grown-up. I have to include myself. I watch Mickey.
Are you going to use my bat this week, Mame? It's a good bat for girls. It's small.
He waves his aluminum bat in the air, almost knocking me in the head. A boy with an English accent, wearing an earring made from a yellow tooth, gets up to bat. I should have thought of that, I think. Necklaces made out of animal teeth. I could probably find teeth in the market. This is a slightly repulsive idea, but I'll see what Stash says. Stash always knows what's going to be hot. He's got a fatherly, knowledgeable quality to him. I watch him explain to the English boy how to hold a bat.
Listen, you hold a bat in cricket, right?
He says.
Yes?
The English boy says, swinging the bat as if it were a tennis racket.
Here, hold it like this.
Stash is left-handed. The boy is right-handed, but he tries to bat left-handed. He swings wildly and misses.
Strike one!
The little boy screams. Mickey's sitting right next to me. His voice is so loud I involuntarily clutch my ear. The pitcher throws another ball. The English boy swings again.
Strike two, you're out. Only 2 strikes in this game. That's the way we decided it last week.
The English boy looks totally puzzled. His face is long and pinched. His nose is skinny as a collie's muzzle.
What? What did I do?
Seems as if he's going to cry. This makes me afraid. Probably the same thing will happen when it's my turn. Maybe I should just leave. I could easily make my escape and meet Stash later at home. But the thought of stepping out from under the carbon arc lamps of this imaginary world, a place brighter than day, into the blackness that falls immediately beyond, fills me with terror. The captain of my team comes over to me.
I'm changing the order.
He says.
You're up next.
I thought maybe I could wait for a while, I
Are
say.
you playing or what?
the captain says.
Everyone's waiting. Go ahead. Take Paul's turn. He went to buy some more beer.
I step up to the plate. Stash, the catcher for his team, stands behind me. He puts his glove down and comes over to me. While the rest of the players wait, he grabs me in a stranglehold and kisses me passionately. I disengage. I have to bat now, I say.
Take your time. That's my advice to you.
Before the pitcher has a chance to throw the ball, Mickey rushes out from the sidelines.
Wait, use my bat. It's a good bat for a girl.
That's okay, Mickey, I say. I like the bat I have because I practiced with it. Stash winks at me. I let a ball go by, and then, on the next pitch, I hit one. For several seconds, I stand still. I have forgotten what to do next. When I watch the ball game with Stash on TV, things seem to move much more slowly. The time from the ball is thrown to me, and when I hit it seems non-existent. Drop the bat. The voice of Mrs. Rourke shouts in my ear. She's more bossy than I could ever hope to be. I drop the bat on my feet and trip over it. Then I start to run. I'm out at first. That's the third out.
Nice play!
Mickey shouts. Stash comes over to me.
You hit the ball. Darling, I'm so proud of you.
Once again, he locks me in an animalistic embrace. One of his greatest fears, he's often told me, is that he will hug me so hard he'll break my ribs. Once he read something like this in the papers. How a man met his girlfriend at the airport and was so glad to see her he killed her. I don't know what my greatest fear is. Maybe that I'll just be caught and discovered, accused of being a child in an adult's body. Between innings, the little kid comes over to me.
I could be the pitcher if anyone wanted me to.
He wipes his nose with the back of his hand.
I could be the catcher if you get tired. Why don't you let me be the catcher? Then you can rest.
Maybe later on, I say. I stand up to take my place as catcher. I don't have a mitt. I'll have to catch barehanded.
You mean the next inning I can catch instead of you?
Maybe later on in the game.
We'll split innings. That's fair.
Maybe.
I'm a great catcher.
He squints.
I'm just going to go tell my dad that she said you want me to catch, okay? Dad, she wants me to catch instead of her.
Wait a minute, I say. You said that I didn't. He doesn't even turn around. Mickey, I say. But he's running up and down the bleachers. All through the inning, I get madder and madder. I really want to be the catcher. It's fun, even though I hurt my finger on the ball when it comes at me too fast, bending my finger backwards. It takes all my strength to throw the ball back to the pitcher. Most of the time it lands short and the pitcher has to run forward to pick it up off the ground. I stagger about trying to avoid being hit when the pitcher throws at the batter. Our team might have gotten a player out at home, but I forget to run to the base when they throw the ball to me. Still, no one yells at me. I'm glad of that. I think to myself, I like being the catcher. Now this little kid is trying to take my position from me. Stash comes up to bat.
You okay?
He says, "Come on, Frankie, baby!" Someone shouts to Stash from the sidelines. It's Eddie, Mickey's father.
He always calls me Frankie Baby.
Stash says. Stash hits the ball and disappears down the field. A cloud of brown dust marks where he runs. I think I'll tell Mickey he can't have my turn as catcher. That's all I need to do, stand up for my rights. I don't want to wait on the sideline while Mickey catches. Anyway, I know I'm not capable of playing left field. My arms are too weak, and in the glare of the arc lamps, I'd have a hard time seeing the ball if it came at me. After the inning, Mickey comes back over to me. He hikes up his pants and rubs his stomach. I wonder what he'll look like when he gets older. His thin lips are cracked, his nose is pug. He resembles a child actor of the 1930s, Jackie Coogan or Spanky from our gang. I remember how much I looked forward to being a grown-up. No school, no one telling you what to do. It didn't turn out to be so much fun. I find it traumatic even to make a decision on what to order from a restaurant menu.
I'm going to ask my father again.
Mickey says.
He was too busy before.
I guess Mickey seems like a regular kid. It hasn't seemed to affect him that his father lives with a man and his mother was some woman. He runs back out onto the field. Eddie looks embarrassed when his son joins him. He keeps walking. "Anybody got a joint?"
She doesn't want to catch, Dad.
Mickey says.
She wants me to take over for her.
I run to Stash. Stash, I say, that kid is trying to take my position away from me.
Well, tell him he can't.
You tell him for it. You tell him for me, I say. But Stash pays no attention. He goes to get a can of chocolate soda.
Hey, Mickey.
The captain of my team calls.
Are you keeping score? Why don't you be the official scorekeeper? I can't.
Mickey says.
I'm going to be the catcher.
No, you're not, I mumble. Mickey races over to me, holding a ball in his hands.
My father says it's okay.
He shouts from 2 feet away. He throws the ball into the air, but as he tries to catch it, it slips out of his hands and rolls behind the backstop.
Go get it.
He tells me. Wait a minute, I say. You go get it. You go get it. I don't have to put up with this. If you want to be a catcher, you go get the ball. You dropped it.
Ah, relax.
Mickey says, waving his hands broadly. His little face is white and pinched. It must be way past his bedtime.
Don't worry about it.
Dirt is smeared in a streak under one eye. I'm ready to send him to Boys Town.
Where are you from?
I don't answer him. All the men seem to take this game very seriously. The women are having a good time, but the men get very angry when they strike out. One guy hits the ball so hard it goes up 150 feet and crashes into the underside of the bridge. The guy looks humbly at the ground. The other team members applaud.
Foul ball, strike one.
There are murmured complaints from the batter.
In this game, a foul counts as a strike. My father says.
The English boy sits down beside me.
What a terrific kid.
He sure has a loud voice, I say.
Let me ask you something. Is getting 2 strikes the worst thing that could possibly do?
No, I say. I don't think it's the worst thing you could do.
That's good.
Mame is up next. She hits the ball and runs to first base. Then she collapses. It's her legs, someone says. Both her legs have apparently given out from under her. She is carried back to the bleachers, moaning quietly. Then she lies flat on her back on the dusty cement steps. Her eyes are shut. The game stops. I look up at the bridge. It's like a whole residence up there, mysterious nooks for a human fly. If there was a way of getting a rope ladder up there, a person could arrange a spot to live. This setting is unearthly. It might be 2 a.m, it might be the day after the bomb is dropped. After a few minutes, a boy drives onto the field on his motorcycle. Mame climbs on behind him, and they race off. What happened? I
He
say.
pulled some muscles.
The English boy says.
It looks bad. Leonard's going to take her to the hospital.
I walk over to Stash. Do you think she's okay? I say. She told me she's pregnant. Stash shakes his head.
That's the kind of stunt Candy used to pull. Every time she got pregnant, she'd go berserk, do something crazy, then run off and have an abortion.
It bothers me that Stash still talks about his ex-wife. Even though she might have been a little crazy, she sounds to me like she was a very glamorous person. Life with her must have been exciting. Were you trying to have a baby? I say.
No, it just happened.
Did you want to have kids?
No.
I'm tempted to ask him whether he thinks we'll always go out together. It's a surprise to me to be 27 with my life still unsettled. I reach out to give Stash a hug, but he's already walking out to the field. I look behind me. Mickey is squatting on the bleachers shouting,
Strike 2, strike 2.
He's jumping up and down, rubbing his crotch. When he catches my glance, a look of shame crosses his face, the same look I've seen on Stash's Dalmatian, Andrew, when he knows Stash is laughing at him for something he's done. Mickey comes over and points to a can of Diet Coke.
Is this your soda? I'm thirsty.
No, I say. I don't know who it belongs to. Mickey stands looking at me. Well, go ahead, I tell him. I'm sure they won't mind if you have some. Mickey glances up.
You're safe, Dad.
I clutch my hand to my ear. The kid is deafening. But Mickey's ecstatic. He leaps up and down on the cement steps, his thin arms waving.
Safe, safe, safe.
He grabs the soda from the steps and drinks eagerly, gurgling sensuously. He puts down the can and looks at me.
You sure you don't want to share my batting? You sure you don't want me to share your batting with me?
No, I say. You can share my catching, but I want my batting. He shrugs.
Top of the 6th, 8-5.
He turns to me.
I could make a good umpire, huh?
Jane, a blonde sculptor wearing a black leather miniskirt, her hair tied with ribbons and tiny shoelaces, hits the ball and runs to first base. She's tagged as she gets there.
Safe!
Mickey bawls. She's out, the first baseman says.
Don't argue with the umpire. She's safe. She had 1 foot on the base before the ball hit her.
It's Mickey's turn as catcher. Maritza, a fashion model, is up at bat. The last time I saw her was in a Japanese magazine wearing something soigné while Godzilla loomed in the background. Mickey races over to her and tries to retrieve the ball, which is rolled between her legs after he threw it in the air. Maritza nearly brains him with the bat during her practice swing. Oops, she says. Sorry about that.
That's one way to do it.
Stash says from the bleachers. He gives me a look, grins. Stash is a team player. He shouts to the pitcher, joking around that Marley, he's out in left field, staggering out and round in circles, has had 1 beer too many. The pitcher kids Stash about his baseball cap. I think everyone loves Stash. When we're in public, he's really an extrovert, the kind of person everyone comes over to talk to. Mickey is undaunted by his near bash on the head. He runs around in a circle carrying the bat and ball before he goes back to the catcher's position.
Daddy, Daddy, it's your turn to bat.
His father jumps up, handing his joint to someone else, and runs over to the plate. The team captain comes over.
It's my turn.
He says. Eddie turns to Mickey. It's not my turn, he says slowly. You said it was my turn, Mickey. I wonder what's going to happen. He seems ready to give Mickey a punch. But Mickey's like a mouse in the elephant's cage.
You're up next then, Daddy.
By now, I'm actually glad that Mickey has finagled my catching position, though I'll never admit it. I'm bushed. This pearlescent, gritty heat and the smell of the East River, garbagey, exotic, is overwhelming. The game has gone on for hours. It must be getting close to midnight. I wonder if the Jerry Lewis telethon has finally ended. It seems as if everyone is a mile apart from each other. Plus, I have to go to the bathroom. Stash suggests I go off behind the far bleachers where Max went earlier. Men have an easier time of things. I can't do that, I tell Stash. There are probably half a dozen rapists lurking out there, and probably that little kid would follow me. I can't believe that kid. He has the loudest voice, Stash.
Doesn't he?
I can't believe I let him push me around. Why doesn't someone discipline him? Why doesn't he take over his father's turn at bat? He stole my position as catcher, and now he wants to take over half my batting.
But he loves you. That little kid loves you. I can see that.
Yeah, because he knows I'm a pushover. The sides change position. Stash gets up to play catcher. Mickey comes back to me.
You know what? Last week I was catcher for 11 innings. 11 innings! There was a girl here who asked me to catch for her. She couldn't play at all. Not like you. You're a good player.
He scratches fiercely at his thin arms.
Bottom of the fifth, 10-7, our favor.
Yeah, I say. You think I'm a good player, Mickey? The pitcher stops. What inning is this? He says.
Bottom of the fifth.
Mickey shrieks again. The pitcher looks puzzled. I thought this was the top of the sixth, he mumbles.
Strike one!
Mickey booms. You're the only one who knows what's going on, Mickey, I say. He's not so bad after all, I think. 8 years old, he's not worrying about what's going to happen to him. In a way, he's like Stash, grabbing things by the throat. The kind of people who don't worry that something might strangle them first. You know what's going on, I say again.
Yep.
Mickey says. Jane's dog, the long black and tan mutt with a bewildered expression, snuffles around Mickey's ankles. Mickey bends to pat the dog. Then he tosses a stick towards shortstop. The dog trots out dutifully after it.
Interference on the field. Timeout. Dog on the field.
A voice came into my head and told me I should give a party. I had always wanted to give a party while I was living with Stash, my ex-boyfriend. Now that I was alone, there was nothing preventing me except that I didn't want to do it. I was afraid. I thought about it for a while, giving a party, and then I thanked my lucky stars. I didn't have a table or chairs, so that ruled that little whim out. No one could have a party without a place to sit. But the voice kept nagging. You must give a party, Eleanor. It will be good for you. And finally I broke down. I found myself in a store, purchasing 2 chairs and a table and arranging to have them delivered. I could see where my actions were leading to. I understood that I was at a period in my life when everything was falling apart. If I could pull off a successful party, then it meant that eventually I'd be able to pull my whole life together. I knew my room would only comfortably hold 4 or 5 people. Since I hated to use the telephone, I sent out 20 invitations. The invitations read, "Please come to my tiny hovel for cocktails." I invited around 15 men and 5 women. What I planned to do was introduce all the men I wasn't interested in to my 3 single girlfriends. The other 2 women were married and coming with their husbands. Unfortunately, I was certain I had probably called each girlfriend, following my various dates with the men, and given them the dish on each man's particular habits. My only hope was that they wouldn't remember. The day of the party, everything went wrong. My table arrived in a box, about 50 pieces of it. It came in instructions in inscrutable English, apparently translated from the Chinese. If I had known it wasn't going to be sent to me whole, I never would have bought it. I tried to screw the various aspects together, but after 2 hours I had to give up. In appearance, the table resembled a table, but the top was merely balanced on the legs, and the whole thing wiggled uncontrollably. Then I tried to cook some kind of dip. I had a recipe from Women's Day for something using cheese and jalapeno peppers, but I couldn't get the stove to work. It was an electric stove, and my electrical field has been shot to hell for a while now. After I broke up with Stash, I went to visit my mother, and every time I tried to make a piece of toast, the toaster caught on fire. Either that or it shot flaming pieces of toast halfway across the room. Nothing was working right around me. I had to replace my answering machine 4 times in 2 weeks as soon as I moved into my new apartment. It kept breaking down. Anyway, after I couldn't get the stove on, I went down for a minute to retrieve the mail. A Con Ed bill for $90. I couldn't even believe it. I was certain it was a mistake, a $90 bill for 1 month. I was living in a studio apartment that was so small I had to buy a folding sofa bed. Otherwise, the wide room would have been filled up with just a bed and a folding table and folding chairs. In other words, if it didn't fold, there was no room for it. And it was early September, hot. I wasn't exactly using the stove for a lot of cooking. I'd use the air conditioner for 1 or 2 nights, but not $90 worth. I could see I was going to be reduced to lighting candles at night just to keep my bills down. I called up the tenant who had been living here before me, and he said when he lived in my apartment, if he used the air conditioner every night for a month, his bill came to maybe $40. No wonder I was so jittery. I was being utilized as some kind of outlet or channel for excess electrical energy. It was pouring straight from the walls into me. My bill said that if I had any questions, I should call up a man named Albert Menendez. So I did. $90, Albert, I told him. This is crazy.
Not to Con Edison.
Albert said. But it did seem crazy. This made me think about objective reality. What a shame it was that nobody had it besides me. I realized I was working myself up into a state, and the party wasn't until 8 o'clock that evening, so I went out for a walk. I was sitting on the pier, and this man came over to me.
Are you playing hooky?
I thought, I'm almost 30 years old. But in a way, I wouldn't have been surprised to find myself arrested and shoved back into first grade. I looked at the guy. He was attractive, maybe even too handsome in a rugged cigarette advertisement kind of way. He had blue eyes, curly brown hair, and was wearing a plaid shirt. Playing hooky from what? I said. The man seemed chagrined, but we started talking. He was a furniture designer. He liked the furniture of Frank Lloyd Wright, though not his buildings, and the work of somebody whose name I didn't know but pretended to anyway. The man, his name was Jan, said he was playing hooky from work to ride his bike around. He had a red motorcycle, BMW 800, parked in the lot at the end of the pier. I said I was depressed. I'd gone out the night before with a girlfriend and drunk too much, and now I was suffering from the consequences. 1, physical symptoms such as headache, fatigue, and vitamin C and B-complex depletion, and 2, anxiety. I don't mind the physical business as much as I do the anxiety, I said. I just keep worrying about this party I'm giving later on. Jan sat down next to me. It was a hot, grayish day. The air smelled of turpentine. Jan said that he was Hungarian. Anyway, his parents came from there, and he was an excellent cook of such dishes as goulash and paprikash, and he had grown up in a small Hungarian community in New Jersey. He spoke a few words in Hungarian. I guess he was trying to prove his honesty to me. He wanted to know how old I was, and when I told him 28, he peered anxiously into my eyes. It was a weird thing, but these days, everywhere I went, people seemed to be asking each other their age. It was like an epidemic, everyone trying to pin each other down by their age as if they were insect collectors. How old are you? I said.
34.
Well, that's old, honey.
Should I leave?
No, I said. I'm just kidding you. Then I told him a story. An elderly man, 72, who was a friend of the family's, called up to take me out to lunch. After the meal, arroz con pollo, he said that he would like to come back to my apartment and make love to me. Even though I said it was better that we remain friends and reminded him that he was happily married, he still made a grab for me at the door. As I fled, his parting words were a compliment about a portion of my body. Isn't that awful? I said.
Why do you seem so shocked? You must be used to this stuff like that.
72 years old? The animal. I tried to explain that the men I knew who were my age never laid a finger on me. When you take someone out, I said, if you decide to go to bed, it's pretty much mutual, isn't it? I mean, you don't attack her at the door or anything. Jan said that this was true, and he agreed. Someone was playing the trumpet very badly one pier over, and the sound carried across the water. The musical background gave the general atmosphere of a scene from a movie. Anyway, I felt as if I was in one. I explained to Jan that I was sick of men placing value judgments on me. Most of the men I go out with come up with these adjectives, but you can tell anyone they're deeply upset, and it will be true at least 50% of the time. Jan didn't seem to understand.
You don't seem upset to me.
I'm not. Well, maybe just a little, but that's because I'm nervous about giving a party. And I'm not stranger weird either. Everybody's stranger weird around here, but I'm not. I know the difference. Jan said. He offered me a ride on his motorcycle. I decided to accept, even though the last time I had ridden on a motorcycle, Max, my father, bumped into me on some back road. He recognized Ricky, the juvenile delinquent I was riding gunshot with, and then he recognized me. He made Ricky stop, made me get off, and forbade me to ride on a motorcycle ever again. I figured that by now Max's statute of limitations had run out, but I did feel a little nervous. Max hadn't been entirely wrong. I knew I was doing something dangerous, possibly even pathological, but I figured on the city streets, how fast could Jan drive his machine? He gave me an extra helmet, which he apparently kept locked to a front wheel, and I tried to shove my hair, it was long and red, up under the helmet. It felt like a vice clamping down.
Don't touch this.
Jan said, pointing to some lump on the side of the motorcycle.
You could get burned.
Then he kicked up some kind of kickstand, started up the engine, and we took off. Driving in heavy traffic, careening between taxis and onto the sidewalk, I felt as if my knees might be shorn off at any moment. I shouted in Jan's ear to make a right down my old boyfriend's block. For a moment, I pictured myself glamorous, waving to Stash as Jan and I screamed through a green light on his bike. I could see Stash, first bewildered, then running madly through the streets after us. Of course, Stash wasn't there, but it was pleasant to indulge in momentary fantasies. Jan took me on a whirlwind tour of lower Manhattan and finally dropped me off near my apartment. I started to say goodbye, but then I had a thought. He was handsome and affable, and I figured even if I had no use for him, maybe one of my girlfriends would. I considered myself to be a reasonable judge of character, and Jan had gone to West Point and dropped out to attend Bard College. So I gave him my address and invited him to my party that night. He said he would be delighted. Even though I had burned up quite a bit of adrenaline on the motorcycle, I still couldn't face my apartment and the impending party. I thought I'd go and get some lunch, and I walked up my street. Agnes, the psychic on my block, was sitting on the stoop, and she stopped me as I went by. She pointed out her husband. He was standing in the gutter with a weary dog who resembled some old stuffed stiff toy. "We've been married 30 years, Agnes said. We're very compatible. He hates people, I love them and talk to everyone. He can't see very well, but he has good legs. My legs are bad, but my vision is fine. Also, we have separate apartments." I nodded. "See you later," I said. "I'm going to get something to eat. Then I have to buy wine. I'm having a party." As I turned the corner along Bleecker Street, I caught a whiff of beef. Garlic, packaged onion soup mix, not bad. I had the sensation of having experienced this before. It was nearly 3 in the afternoon. Then I saw 2 men I knew. Each of them was wheeling a stroller with a baby.
Hi, Eleanor.
Mark said to me.
Our wives went to a baby shower.
Mark said.
We're taking care of the babies. You know Beauregard, don't you?
Yeah, I said. I looked down at the baby Beauregard was wheeling. It was exceptionally homely.
It's not mine.
Beauregard said.
It's my niece. How are you, Eleanor?
Mark said. He gave me a pitying look. I hadn't seen him since before I broke up with Stash. Great, excellent, I said. My career's going well, got a cute apartment. Mark looked nervous.
That's nice. We went to see Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Did you enjoy it?
Beauregard asked his niece. The infant had a fat face and a sour expression. I thought she might be around 1.5. It was fine, thank you, she said. The 2 men seemed very glum. And how did you guys like Goldilocks, I said. Nobody answered. There was a street fair yesterday on the next block, I said. Maybe it's still there today, you could look. I pointed to my studded leather wristband. I purchased this there for a mere $2. I wish I had bought more. Some had spikes. Frankly, I'd like to have wristbands up to my neck. Nobody would mess with me then. Beauregard suddenly perked up.
Where'd you move to, Eleanor? You look wonderful. Yeah, Eleanor,
Mark said. So I ended up inviting them to my party. Then I went to a diner and selected a hamburger and french fries. I needed something to restore myself. The food seemed almost deliberately bad. This fascinated me. Ice-cold french fries, nearly uncooked, watery ketchup, a thin piece of meat between 2 cold slices of bread. Spiteful. I knew my atmosphere was having an influence. A bearded hippie type was harassing the waiter.
What's the matter?
He kept saying. The waiter didn't seem to speak any English. He was dark and surly.
Why are you in a bad
The
mood?
bearded man said.
Come here, I'll straighten you out. Where you from?
The waiter didn't answer.
I think you're great. You're sweet, but you're great.
Behind me were 2 women who were talking. Apparently they had just visited someone in the hospital. I think her doctor's gone mad, one said to the other. Did you look at her chart? Under patient's diet, he wrote bed rest. Finally, I got myself out of there and bought the wine and went home. There were a lot of messages from my guests on the answering machine. I had forgotten that I had left a message which said, Hello. For breakfast today, I had a donut, black coffee, and cranberry apple juice. I'm having a party. Please feel free to attend. Leave a message after the beep. When I played my tape back, I had a lot of people saying, "Hi, for breakfast I had 2 eggs, scrambled toast, and hot chocolate. See you later on tonight." I couldn't figure out for quite a while why all these people kept telling me what they had eaten for breakfast. There was only one piece of bad news. All the women I had invited suddenly couldn't make it. One was sick, one had to leave town, another made up some lame excuse. They had spent so much time complaining to me about being single, I couldn't believe they would cancel on such an exciting event. But at least there would be me and my girlfriend Amy. She was in the middle of divorce and would surely be happy to accommodate as many men as she could in order to prove she was on the rebound. Before the guests came, I was so jittery, I felt like putting a sign on the door. "Died early last night. Go away." But as it turned out, my downstairs front door buzzer was broken and many of the guests didn't get in anyway. Everything was a bit skewed. I had to cover my table with a crepe paper tablecloth. Even though it wasn't Halloween, the cloth was decorated with various pumpkins. It was the only thing I had been able to find. And I made a display of some hunks of cheese and some tiny regular spinach and phyllo pastries that I'd found in the freezer at the supermarket. It wasn't the most elegant extravaganza I could have imagined. But I myself looked splendid. I had purchased green satin Chinese pajamas, and I wore these and a pair of gold sandals. I prepared my camera with fresh film and batteries. I was definitely going to record the event. Then the guests started to arrive. Mike, Fritz, Barry, Leonard, John, and Ted. And Bill, Stan, Larry, and Russell. I seated them on the couch, on the chairs, and on the floor. Everybody seemed genuinely affectionate toward me, even though I could hardly remember who they were. The men all brought bottles of wine and flowers. Amy arrived dressed in a leopard print see-through blouse, tights, and spike-heeled shoes. She stood at the sink defrosting a hunk of pate she had stolen from the caterers where she worked. "Come in and meet Leonard," I said. "He's gorgeous, humble, and heterosexual." "I can't," Amy said. "I'm frightened. I'm the kind of guest who likes to lurk in the kitchen." "I don't have a kitchen," I said, "just an alcove. Why didn't you tell me this before? You're the only woman here besides me." The room was crowded with cigarette smoke. Men were rummaging through my refrigerator looking for more bottles of wine. I thought of myself as Audrey Hepburn in that Breakfast at Tiffany's movie. Truman Capote was hunched over in the corner. Actually, he wasn't Truman, just some male friend who liked to make fun of me. And the rest of the room was filled up with men and my one girlfriend. That wasn't exactly how I'd planned things, but that was how they turned out. Of course, during the party itself, there was plenty of food for thought. Was Mike getting along with Fritz? They were talking about tuna fishing and then moved on to what Eastern European tennis players wore on the courts. Was Amy talking about her divorce for too long to Leonard? Ashtrays, refills of wine, changing the tape from Nino Rotti's movie scores for Fellini films to some modern American bongo music. I was looking for any activity that prevented me from associating with my guests. How the hell had Holly Golightly ever been able to have a good time? The buzzer kept ringing and ringing, but no one else ever arrived at the door. I didn't know then that 50% of the time it wasn't working. It seemed like hundreds of people would arrive at any minute, but when this didn't happen, I climbed out on the fire escape to see who was downstairs. Maybe they'd rung and left.
"Wait, Eleanor!
I heard one of my guests shouting.
Don't do it! Don't jump!"
Then, for a moment, I did feel truly glamorous. In my green satin Chinese pajamas, crawling out the window to the fire escape, I was certain I looked like a genuine hostess. Now, if only the door would ring with some man I was interested in, my evening would be complete. But I was expecting no guest that I was intrigued with or even much liked. Finally, the front door of my apartment did ring, and I scurried off the fire escape to answer it. It was Jan, complete with suitcase. I quickly finished my glass of wine.
"Hi, how are you?"
"Okay," I said. "Do come in, but I hope you weren't planning to move in with me. It's rather crowded in here already." I was a little put off by the suitcase.
Don't worry. My girlfriend threw me out this afternoon. I just thought I'd stop by your party before I check into a hotel.
"Have some wine," I said. I led him across the room to where Amy had arranged herself like Ingres Maja, reclining on a bed of Spanish soap boxes. Actually, she was sprawled on my futon, which was a bed as well as a spare chair. I took up my camera for incriminating photographs. Then I looked at my watch. I wasn't having a bad time. I just couldn't wait until the event was over and I could genuinely enjoy myself. I was sick of having fun. I found fun very traumatizing. Difficult, even. In some ways, it was more fun not to have fun. To me, having fun was almost identical to feeling anxious. I thought I preferred to sit at home by myself, depressed. Meanwhile, Mark and Beauregard arrived, apparently having come together. "Hi, guys," I said. "Where's Tina and Betsy? I had assumed they would bring their wives." Mark said. He took out a cigarette and wandered off to look for a light.
We didn't know we should bring them.
Beauregard said. He looked embarrassed and went to the table to get some food. His foot must have touched one of the table legs. He leaned forward and the whole table collapsed abruptly, spilling half-finished wine and plastic cups and cheese onto the floor. 3 men knelt to clean it up.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry.
Beauregard said. Jan propped up the table, crawled under it, and quickly screwed it into normalcy. I looked at him with new interest. "Don't worry about it," I said. "I don't think that table was meant for actual use. It was just a platonic ideal." Everyone was smoking cigarettes, but the strange thing was nobody had any matches. It seemed that every surface was littered with empty matchbooks. As long as one person had a lit cigarette, though, somebody else could light up from them. Ted trapped me near the refrigerator.
Tell me, Eleanor.
He said.
Do you think children are just born the way they are? Do you think that parents have any effect on their personality?
Ted had an 8-year-old son who was already making it big. The kid had a rock band with a hit record. "I don't know," I said, trying to escape. "I was in Soho the other day and a woman was carrying a large chimpanzee. The chimp was dressed in a suit and little boots. Strange, huh?"
I saw some of your jewelry featured in Vogue.
Ted said. "Excuse me," I said. I locked myself in the bathroom. When I came out, it appeared most of the wine was gone. I was finally able to get rid of my guests. It was a peculiar thing. Each of the men seemed to think I had invited him because I was in love with him, when in fact just the opposite was true. Each one kissed me at the door and said not to worry, that he would call me soon. "Did you get to meet my friend Amy?" I said. Apparently they had all taken her number. I thought everyone was gone, but Mark and Beauregard and Jan had seated themselves on the couch and were polishing off a 2-liter bottle of wine they must have had hidden away. Since I could see they weren't going to leave, I lay down on the futon and held up my glass for another refill. "Oh, God," I said, clutching my head, "remind me never to do this again." They sat there like the Three Stooges, waiting to see what I would do next. "This might have been easier on me if I'd had a boyfriend," I said, "someone to share the responsibility with. I'm starting to think I'll never meet anyone."
Let me tell you something.
Beauregard said in a slurred voice.
You shouldn't act so desperate.
"Let me tell you something," I said. "I was just as desperate when I had a boyfriend. I consider life itself to be an act of desperation." Beauregard looked puzzled.
She doesn't like to have value judgments placed on her.
Jan said. "Thank you," I said. Nobody said anything for a few minutes. The tape had come to the end and the room was quiet for the first time. "Well," I said again, "thank God that's over."
What is it you hope to accomplish, Eleanor?
Mark said. "It was a party," I said. "Where was Tina tonight?"
I told her I didn't want her to come.
He was pretty looped.
I said that I needed to be out on my own without her sometime.
I wondered why in that case he was spending so much time with Beauregard. Obviously it wasn't that he wanted to be independent, he just didn't want to be with her. "I think I missed Stash," I said. "So, did I do anything terrible tonight?"
You didn't do anything wrong.
Beauregard said.
No worse than anyone else.
Mark said. "I was drunk and exhausted." "I know it," I said. "One part of me knows that, but the other part of me berates myself constantly."
You don't get what you think out of a relationship anyway.
Jan said. "So it's impossible then," I said. Beauregard fumbled for a cigarette.
Damn, I keep forgetting. There's no matches. Wait a minute. Why don't I just go and light the cigarette on the stove?
"It doesn't work," I said. I remembered how when I was a child, my parents gave me instruction in how to use electricity. Always hold a plug from the back, never turn on an appliance with wet hands. Surely they left out some essential directions.
The stove doesn't work.
Beauregard said. "I have to call Con Ed tomorrow," I said. Mark leaned forward and poured us some more wine.
They're giving us little moments here which are opportunities to escape. This is one of those. So it was that I, Marley Mantello, had a breakfast appointment with plump collector Chuck Day Dolger for 8 in the morning. At 1:45, I heard a horn honk outside the tenement on Avenue C, where I live and paint. I went down the 5 flights of stairs